This year we will finish our course of A-level English, through which we have learned a great amount of grammar and been through several topics. In this assignment I will in brief explain what I have done and what I have learned throughout the year. The topics we have worked with this year are the Vietnam War, humor, 21st century technology, the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime, capital punishment, and crime fiction. And the grammar I've decided to highlight regards the preliminary subjects without a form to be. Through the course of the topic the Vietnam War, we learned about the history of the war and its cultural influence, such as it starting an anti-war movement, resulting in a PTSD epidemic and causing high suicide rate amongst veterans. By watching Platoon, a movie publicly praised for being a realistic illustration of the Vietnam War, we learned that young Americans were inspired by patriotism to sign up as soldiers and join the front line. They wanted to be like their fathers and grandfathers that were praised for being heroes. However, after having experienced the slaughter of their comrades, conflict in their ranks, and abuse of local civilians, many would return traumatized and scarred for life. Moreover, they would only return home to face ridicule and shame, because this war was the first war to be watched by the public's eye. As the American people got a glimpse of the horrors of war, they grew to despise it, and thus an anti-war mentality started rising, which would come to affect the surviving veterans negatively. This could, for example, be seen in Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, "A Time to Break the Silence," which we read in class. It was a long speech, but his main point was that he believed that all races should be equal. According to him, the war unveiled a dark truth, that black Americans were fighting for democracy abroad when they did not even have it at home. At home, black Americans continued to be sidelined. They were alienated and stuck in periphery, while their white counterparts felt growing prosperity. We also read a song by Arlo Guthrie, namely Alice's Restaurant. The point of this song was to point out the government's misplaced priorities regarding the Army enrollment's draft system. Then we also read Michael Herr's Dispatches, an authentic recollection of how it felt to be on the front lines of Vietnam. In this text, Herr states that all the facades of patriotism, heroism, and the whole colossal fraud of American intervention fall away to the bare bones of fear, war, and death. This knowledge and understanding of the war was acquired by reading/watching and understanding the text handed to us in class. Then came the topic of humor and comedy. We learned about the different theories of humor and humorous devices, and also about how the culture regarding humor differed between the UK and the USA. We read several comedic stories, such as The Penis, and analyzed what made them humorous. Then we read several comedians' accounts of what the humor in Britain and America is like, and learned that the two countries had some clear differences when it came to taste in humor. Americans are, for example, very critical of humor regarding religion, race, and accidents such as 9/11. On the other hand, the superiority theory caters to England, and Brits also tend to appreciate irony and smut and innuendos and absurdity much more. Another memorable thing we did during this topic was watching the theater play called The Crazy Christmas Cabaret, and watching different comedic TV shows and analyzing what humorous devices they use. During the course about the 21st century technology topic, we learned about the advancements in technology and science in the 21st century. Our work looked at a wide array of technology ranging from computer engineering to gene editing. This topic was therefore the topic that primarily developed our vocabulary within science and technology. I specifically chose to focus my efforts on learning about CRISPR, a new gene editing technology. The main assignment during this topic was, much like now, a screencast video with a matching script. The next topic we worked with was the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime, which looked upon autism. This book also allowed us to develop our own interpretation of what having autism is like. Besides reading a book, we also watched a TV show with an autistic main character that was very similar to the protagonist in the book. Lastly, we compared the fictional character's autism to actual autism or real-life autism, where I learned that most people with autism have it far worse than represented in the text. The topic about capital punishment taught us about the history of capital punishment and how it influenced culture and society. Capital punishment has had a significant historical presence in both English and American history, which we explored. We also looked at cases with falsely convicted death row inmates and the ethics of execution. Lastly, we learned about crime in fiction and about what made crime in fiction popular, which gave us an idea of how the society in England in the Victorian era was. I believe that reading the book A Study in Scarlet greatly expanded my vocabulary by introducing a lot of old or formal words, English words. Despite these words such as temerity being considered too formal for everyday speech, they can make one's written text much more complex or less crude if used in moderation. I personally found the course about autism the most enjoyable. The book continued to build the reader's emotional investment, and the story continued to develop. Besides, we also learned a great amount about autism itself by drawing parallels between real-life autism and the character Christopher Boone's autism. I also enjoyed reading A Study in Scarlet, but at the beginning of the second part a shift in narrative occurred. This halted the book's build-up suspense in trade for a more impactful ending. As mentioned, we also learned a great deal about grammar this year, such as rules regarding nouns, verbs, adjectives, congruence, genitive, adverbs, pronouns, prepositions, and tricky words, also known as false friends. To me, the Find and Correct the Mistake assignment embodies the first part of the written exam. This is why I want to highlight some of the grammatical rules that I believe are likely to come up in the written exams, especially the ones that are likely to come up in the Find and Correct the Mistake part. I want to mention some of the grammar errors that one can expect to encounter in this assignment. Being able to recognize certain errors and understanding how to correct the errors is crucial to be able to solve it. The rule I want to mention is the no preliminary subject without a form to be rule. More often than not, one will run into a sentence with this kind of error during this kind of assignment. An example is, there occurred an accident in town last night when a police car was chasing a criminal. In cases such as these, one should just remove the preliminary subject and insert the actual subject, an accident. Meaning, an accident occurred in town last night when a police car was chasing a criminal. Alright.